service at the Universalist Fellowship in Laguna Beach. My name is Pamela Flodman, and I will be serving as your worship associate for today. And we are delighted today to welcome Reverend Rayna Hamre back to UUFLB as our guest minister. We're also delighted that you have chosen to join us this morning, either here in the fellowship building, where we are all masked and maintain physical distance to keep each other safe, or if you've joined us virtually by Zoom. It is a joy to have so many ways in which we can join together. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith. If you have joined us this morning by Zoom, I invite you to light a chalice within your home, as Reverend Rayna lights the chalice here for us at UUFLB. Our chalice lighting words today are from the Reverend Dr. David C. Pohl, and we are going to read the chalice lighting words as a responsive reading this morning. So Dawn will be bringing the words up on the screen. So as we read, I will read the words in the regular print, and you will read the words in italics. Again, these are the words from the Reverend Dr. David C. Pohl. We come to this time and place
to rediscover the wondrous gift of free religious community.
Renew our faith in the holiness, goodness, and beauty of life.
To reaffirm the way of the open mind and the full heart.
Kindle the flame of memory and of hope. And
to reclaim the vision of an earth made fair with all her people one.
Thank you. I love the image in those last words of the chalice lighting. Reclaiming the vision of an earth made fair with all her people one. And also renewing our faith in the holiness, goodness, and beauty of life. When I found these chalice lighting words yesterday while I was preparing for this morning's service, they seemed to me to directly reflect the simple beauty also of our gathering music this morning. Morning Has Broken, a favorite hymn which always evokes for me the joy that I experience whenever I make the time to immerse myself in nature. On this Sunday morning, our service is entitled Altered Spaces, Creating Meaningful Altars for Personal Reflection. And this morning, Reverend Rayna will be sharing with us ideas for connecting creatively with nature and with spirit by creating and communing with our own personal altar space. As Unitarian Universalists, our 6 sources provide many avenues to appreciate and explore the great faiths and traditions of the world. The living tradition that we share draws from many sources. And if you haven't done so recently, I invite you to read the words, read the listing of the 6 sources, which you can find either in the opening pages of our gray hymnal and also on the UUA website. The words which follow the 6 sources have a deep meaning for me. They read, grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith, we are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. In describing the service, Reverend Rayna has pointed out that one universal source of inspiration used in many of the traditions from which Unitarian Universalism draws is the altar. This observation caused me to reflect that while I may have mostly thought previously of an altar as just a physical entity, maybe something built by someone else, it can in reality really be much more. In describing today's service, Reverend Rayna reflected, An altar can provide an avenue into deep meditative states and experiences. As a UU Pagan with a Buddhist background, Reverend Rayna will today be sharing with us ideas for creative connection with nature, spirit, and your own theological understandings by building and communing with your own personal altar space. My sense is that there are infinite varied ways in which we might each approach this task. And that as with the words from our UU6 sources, this pluralism enriches and ennobles all that we aspire to accomplish here at UUFLB. So this morning, we will share the joy of being able to join together, both in person and virtually, as a small but strong, growing community with the potential to reach beyond the four walls of this building here in Laguna Beach. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation. Whatever has brought you here this morning, we welcome you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. And so I want to give many thanks this morning to the incredible team of individuals at UUFLB who work together each week to create opportunities for us to worship together and also to be together in community. It amazes me how many individuals quietly step up to take care of the tasks which need to be done. And so I am grateful to our board for their leadership, to the worship community for working to craft meaningful worship services, to Carole for inspiring us each Sunday with beautiful music, to the technical team, and this includes many people, Dawn and Paul, Dara, Mike, Cindy, Rachel, for making sure that our services run smoothly and that notices are sent out to alert our members and our friends about each coming service. And I'm grateful to the small group of committed volunteers led by Bruce and John, who work on one Thursday a month to provide food to the alternative sleeping location, our neighbors here in Laguna Beach. And the members of our community who organized a Zoom at noon discussion group each week. Now it meets on Mondays. And if you haven't had a chance to attend the group, I encourage you to give it a try. I usually can't attend because of when it occurs, but the times that I've attended, it's been a wonderful chance to connect with each other. And this is how we build community, as a strong base from which we can then go out and make a difference in the world. And, you know, although there are clearly so many committed hands working together already, there are always more opportunities and more to be done. So if you're looking for a way to become more involved, please reach out. So welcome to all. Again, it is good to be together this morning in all of the ways we can join together in worship. On the slide that Dawn will now put up for us is a list of the upcoming services for the next few weeks here at UUFLB. So next week, on February 27th, we will be welcoming Charles Langley of Public Watchdogs for a social justice service that Noreen Kukkonen has put together. On March 6th, we are delighted that we'll be hosting as a guest speaker Kiana Denai Perkins, and she is a current divinity student at Star King School for the Ministry. And then on March 13th, Emmeline Cordingley, who is also a divinity student and a frequent guest speaker here at UUFLB, will be joining us again here for the Sunday service. Following today's service, I hope you have time to stay for a bit and connect with each other and with Reverend Rayna, both those of you who are here in the fellowship building and also our attendees on Zoom during the virtual cafe. And if you're here in the building, we'll also have an opportunity to join together with Reverend Rayna outside on the patio to bring nature and spirit together in the building of our own altered space here at UUFLB. And I can see we have several young attendees this morning back in the room in the back of the sanctuary here. So I'm hoping maybe that's an event that we'll choose to join together to build an altar. Coming together to share our ideas and our hopes and our vision. This is how we build strong community together and how we then can go out and make a difference. Our centering thought for today is from Alice Walker, from her novel, The Color Purple. And it's a little irreverent, but it definitely fits with today's service. It is years since I read this book, and yet when I read the words that were chosen for the centering thought, I remembered them. I remember coming across them the first time I read The Color Purple, and how they remind me of the power of nature in our lives. I think it pisses God off when you walk by the color purple in a field and don't notice it. So this morning, to start our exploration of nature and spirit and the creation of altered spaces, we'll start with our opening hymn, number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. We invite those of you who are attending by Zoom to sing out from home, even though you'll be muted. The words will be in the chat. And here in the fellowship building, we may join the music by humming quietly or by softly singing the words. They're in the gray hymnal, and you will need your hymnal to sing along. It's number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. So please enjoy the music of our talented music director, Carole.
Good morning, everyone. Please join me in singing a very lively Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Repeat that. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Morning, everyone, and thank you for having me return. It's always a joy to be here. And many thanks to Pam and everyone who helped put the service together. It does indeed take a team to do all the technical side, have the building ready, everything, all the things. So thank you so much. Our call to worship this morning is from the Reverend Jacob Trapp. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in the sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to be silent, receptive before a tree, a stir with the wind, or the passing shadow of a cloud. To worship is to work with dedication and with skill. It is to pause from work and listen to a strain of music. To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still, small voice within. Worship is a loneliness that seeks communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain. Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through the deeds of kindness and through acts of love. Worship is the mystery within each of us, reaching out to the mystery beyond. It is an open, inarticulate silence, yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment, open to the sky of the eternal. And Pamela, lead us in our Unison Affirmation.
Now we will take a moment to remind ourselves why we come together as a community. I invite you to read these words together when and if it feels right for you. So if you wish and you are joining from home, please unmute your microphone so that you can hear each other's voices. It is indeed powerful when we join our voices together. The words of the Unison Affirmation will be on your screens, and please join me together in reading. May we
be reminded here
of our
of our highest aspirations
inspired
and inspired to bring our
gifts
gifts
of
of love and service to the altar of humanity.
May we
May we
know
know
once
once
again
again that we are not isolated beings,
but
connected in
mystery and miracle
miracle to the universe,
to
this community
community, and
to each other.
So we have come to a time in our service to briefly share the important events that have touched our lives in the past week. Our joys, when shared, are magnified. And in sharing our sorrows, we provide the support and care that are vital for all of us in community. So during this time of sharing our joys and concerns, we will pause the recording of the service. As much a blessing to be able to give as it is to receive. This is a self-governing, self-sustaining community. And we know in this community that it is our responsibility to both give and receive, and that's our responsibility to do both well. So as we approach this time for our offering, we invite you to give what you will to this fellowship, which depends on the love and the generous contribution from our members. We are empowered by the innumerable gifts of all of those who join in covenant with us: time, compassion, humor, financial contribution, and all of our gifts generously given are needed for this fellowship and its continued good work in the world. So we will be passing a basket here in the fellowship, and there is information on your screen of additional ways which you can give. Now, please rise as you are comfortable, and we will join together in singing to each other words of sincere gratitude. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Thank you all. And we will now watch a short video from Day Schildkrit on the building of a morning altar.
All right. Well, Day Schildkrit was one of the wonderful discoveries that I made and his morning altars meditations as I was preparing to write this service up. Before we start, I'd like to invite in and thank in a moment of meditation or prayer the 4 directions for inspiration today. We invite in and thank the spirits of the East, the spirit of inspiration, for joining us this morning. We invite in and thank the spirits of the South, of action, for joining us. We invite in and thank the spirits of the West, of love and understanding, for joining us. We invite in and thank the spirits of the North, this good earth, for joining us today. We invite in the spirits of community, creativity, and joy. May we be blessed with your presence. Blessed be. So I'm here today to invite you to join me in a powerful devotional practice that can take us outside in nature, onto new adventures, or inside for our personal spaces. This practice helps us appreciate where we are right now. It allows us to be creative, to share that creativity, and better understand the impermanence of existence. All this joy, beauty, and connection is waiting to envelop us. 3 weeks ago, I spoke here at UUFLB about joy and what brings us joy, the colors, shapes of physical, tangible objects that we are hardwired as humans to appreciate. If you recall, experiencing rounded shapes, bright colors, the natural world can all bring us joy. And I'm remembering the joy generator of NPR that I mentioned. Creating an altar, whether indoors or outside, allows us to thoughtfully connect and interact with those rounded, colorful, beautiful objects out there in the world, or even in our home. Intentionally creating an altar can also provide a daily reflective or spiritual practice that moves us into peace and transcendence. Altars connect us with inner parts of ourselves, allow us to share our creative gifts with others, and then we can experience the natural rhythm of release, of letting go of the things of this world as the items on the altar are scattered or put away for another time. My own altars have brought me much joy over the years. There were altars I created for the UU Adult Religious Education curriculum, and some of you might remember Rise Up and Call Her Name from the 1990s. I created a new altar every week dedicated to each goddess and religion that we were exploring. Several people in the class told me that they appreciated having the physical connection of that spiritual tradition that an altar provided. At the time, most of us participating in this groundbreaking curriculum didn't realize that we were trespassing and culturally appropriating all these wonderful spiritual traditions. But this was a different time. We were caught up in the blooming of the goddess traditions and pagan spiritualities that were reviving in the United States. I would approach leading that class and the altar creation quite a bit differently now. But again, these were earlier times. For one session, I set up a big fire altar to the goddess Kali. As I was talking, the faces around me started to look more and more anxious. Finally, someone shouted, and I turned around, and the Kali fire was flaming way out of control. It was still contained, but was starting to go, way beyond what it should in our beloved RE building. Someone who didn't know you never pour water on a burning wax or candles did just that, and the flames shot up even higher. Suddenly there was this hissing sound and a big puff, and the fire went out all at once. We remembered that session for years after. I always believed that Kali had visited us in her most dramatic form. Thankfully, not all altars will be that dramatic, but my own most remembered moments on altars or with altars have involved fire. The altar at a friend's house with a curious cat with a fluffy tail. One of my own altars with a candle and picture of an ancient goddess from Hungary. While my husband and I were talking, we glanced over and her picture had caught on fire. Fortunately, there have not been serious situations or injury, but I now advise everyone and anyone, including myself, to keep a fire extinguisher handy for devotional spaces that include fire. Altars have an ancient history. I looked up ancient cities, including Çatalhöyük in Turkey. I never quite, that's got a little in there. In Turkey and Skara Brae in Scotland, and added the word altar to the searches. Where there have been humans, there have been altars. Setting aside a sacred space to honor the divine or to seek favor through some type of sacrifice or celebration is part of our human story. In my own experience, the creation of an altar is a spiritual act, a way to connect and honor our ancestors, a remembrance, a beautiful echo of who we as a shared people have been since ancient times. Today, we have the joyous freedom to create altars that honor nature, our ancestors, our faith traditions, our homes, or simply our own inner spirit. The English word inspiration comes from the Latin inspirare, meaning to breathe into, and is related to the word spirit. In the ancient Greek world, the muses or Apollo would visit and provide inspiration. A human muse sometimes appears to artists to inspire them, as in the Greek story, the ancient Greek story of Pygmalion. The story of an adored statue that comes to life was the inspiration for the modern musical My Fair Lady. Working with an altar provides many levels of absorption and meditative practice. We can create an altar by focusing on the aesthetic level, how it looks, the flow of color and design. Altars can also be created on a purely heart level. If you're going through a transition, a celebration, or a loss, a special altar can be a wonderful part of that experience. Kids can be active partners in creating altars. I'm gonna test that out in a little bit here as we create our altar outside, and usually love to be included. For those who have a spiritual inclination, altars can be constructed in a kick-tush way, one that opens up and offers a bridge between spirit and the physical world. And I'll come back to that gateway aspect later. I would guess some folks here already have an altar. I know at least one person does in their home. Could you raise your hand if you right now have an altar in your house? All right. I've made many altars over the years, and I'm sure some of you have done, even if you don't currently have an altar, have made an altar. Like many pagans, just about every surface space in my house is some kind of altar. There, I practiced this sermon with my husband, and he just kind of looked at me like, yep, we got that. There have been times when I have spent a great deal of time and focus creating an altar, and other occasions when I made a very simple altar in a spontaneous way. It can be a wonderful experience to create a quick altar on a beach or in the woods, or in your window, on maybe a small patio, all kinds of places. With each altar I make, I try to move into that universal flow of energy that arrives when we are in a meditative and creative state of mind. Sometimes it is a quick revelation when we're in the shower or falling asleep. Sometimes we are in an intentionally meditative or thoughtful state of mind. This is very dynamic. This very dynamic visitation of inspiration, which some experience physically, would be in the body, and it has many names. I took a dive into the worldwide deities and descriptions of the concept of inspiration. In order to keep myself culturally ethical, I am going to focus on Western traditions that use the description of Awen, the tradition of my own family background. For a deeper look, there are many interesting pathways to explore around the experience of inspiration. In African Yoruban language, the word for inspiration is very similar to the British Isles' ancient Celtic word, an idea. The Celtic word awen and the Yoruban word awan are very similar, and the only difference is an E and an O at the end of the word in the spelling. I don't know the full etymology of the two words, but that would be a fun exploration. In this British Isles tradition, the spirits of inspiration visit us through Awen. Awen comes upon one, and traditionally the visitation of Awen has been associated with singers and with poets. I would argue that each of us can be completely taken over by the spirit of creativity, and when we're lost in all kinds of creative acts, including meditative altar building. To better illustrate what Awen is, here is a brief story of a young man taken over by Awen in Great Britain, recorded by a 17th century writer. The story tells of a very poor youth who was an orphan, taken in by a rich man to help with the sheep he lived out in the pastures. One night he had a dream. While in a deep sleep, he dreamt of a beautiful young man with a garland of green leaves upon his head and a hawk on his vest. The hawk flew at the shepherd, and in this dream, the hawk flew into the shepherd's mouth and down into his innards. The boy woke up in fear, but after his dream, he found he now possessed the gift of poetry. He left the sheep and began traveling, making songs for all occasions, and became, quote, the most famous bard in all the country in his time. Anyone who has painted a picture, made a drawing, created a garden, or been lost in creating an altar, or has been caught up and swept away by an artistic project, has likely tasted, if not been overcome, by the muses or by the Celtic Awen. And I encourage everyone to explore your own heritage. History provides all kinds of clues to how we are and our ancestors connected to that animated spirit of inspiration, how your ancestors connected with inspiration, and you might experience a deep ancestor connection with that exploration within yourself. Spiritual practitioner, researcher, and writer Denise Lynn has all kinds of ideas for altars in our homes in her book, appropriately titled Altars. She tells us that altars in our homes can be as simple or as complex as we want to make them. If you are into the energies in your house or garden, you can align your garden using feng shui or other techniques for creating those certain energy flows. Many faith traditions have rules or guidelines for creating an altar. I teach an entire class to pagans on how to do a traditional Western pagan altar using our symbols and tools. Of course, there are many variations there. There are all kinds of ways to set up meaningful or fun or any kind of altar in your home. Lynn's ideas include altars for healing mind and body, altars created for transitions. My husband recently retired and we left up all his cards and gifts on a shelf as he left his job of 34 years. Altars can present and remind us of events or aspects of experience that we want to manifest in our lives, like abundance. Who doesn't need and appreciate more abundance in their life? If we turn to altars that express our own spirituality or worldview, we have many models we can follow. In the Japanese Buddhist tradition, where I studied years ago, the altar area is called the Butsudan. The Butsudan can be a shelf, a platform, or a cabinet, something simple or something very ornate. On the shelf or inside will be a picture or something representing the Buddha or another deity, possibly a sacred mandala. A butsudan might also include incense, candles, bells, and a place for food or other offerings to the Buddha and perhaps ancestors. We can often, it's usually easy to see the difference between altars in religious communities. Having set up both Buddhist altars and pagan altars, I usually say the difference between setting up a Buddhist altar and a pagan altar is about 20 pounds. We pagans love our stuff and usually have all kinds of representations of air and fire and water, earth, deity, candles, symbolic items, small gifts to hand out to each participant, tarot cards, incense, special festive clothing, and jewelry to wear. While a Buddhist altar can express a very spare and simple beauty, perhaps with just a flower and a candle. Not a universal truth, one contemporary pagan teacher does challenge pagans to create a simple back to basics altar with just a few items. One of our local UU congregations creates an altar every Sunday, and people eagerly sign up to create this beautiful space on Sunday morning. Each of these UU altars is a work of art. I can't believe how beautiful. They were just absolutely gorgeous, still are, it's ongoing. Using color and carefully selected items for the table that holds the chalice and the candles for the morning. Imagine setting up your own Unitarian Universalist altar. What would you include? How would you represent our UU values? What colors would you use? It's something to think about. Not everyone has a spiritual practice, but for those of us who do, an altar can serve as a way, and I'm going to ask you to keep an open mind, into the spirit world. Having a beautiful altar set up in the dark with lots of candles burning can easily transport me into a meditative state. Some of my most meaningful altars have included my ancestor altars. I am preparing to move into healing work and community with my ancient ancestors, and my altar will be an important part of that journey. To work with an altar that connects you in these ways, one is usually a practitioner of that faith. I teach folks how to do this deeper exploration using earth-based and wider mystical spiritual traditions. So I invite you to talk to me about that later if you are interested in how that works. An ancestor altar in many traditions serves as a way to communicate and invite in our ancestors. In the Mexican tradition, this is the ofrenda that is set up for November 1st, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. In Santeria, the beautiful faith tradition that combines ancient African Yoruban religion and aspects of Catholicism, an ancestor altar is usually all white, and they're just beautiful, very lovely. Examples of altars for ancestors from many traditions can be found on our Universal Search Place YouTube. If you do make that exploration, please remember, as we all know, there are wide ranges of experience and expertise. So, not everything on YouTube is what is an actual practice. Might be someone's heavily interpreted idea. You might already have an ancestor altar in your home. If you have a picture wall of your family, especially a family from earlier times, you can easily claim this as your ancestor altar with intentionality and a little creativity if it speaks to you. Intentionality is what I love about Day Schildkreuz's passion for morning altars. This intentionality turns his 7 steps for making an altar into a deeper meditative practice. He has more videos online, so if you want to see more gorgeous altars, you can check there, or you can purchase his book and Denise Lynn's book to support them. They're 2 books, they each have a book on altars, and these pictures are just like gorgeous of these different altars. Day's meditative approach echoes the ancient Asian practice of mandala meditation. One aspect of that practice that embraces sacred art that is constructed from colored sand, rice, seeds, and other ephemeral, impermanent materials is that they are left to dissolve out in the elements. I invite you to use Day Schildkreuz's steps as a guideline to create your own. I mean, he invites us to use his, but we are Unitarian Universalists and we like to do our own thing. So, if you want to create your own spiritual practice, Here are some ideas, his guidelines. Collect items from around the neighborhood or in an area where you are going to create your altar. Select a place for the altar. Clear the space. Play with the patterns as you create your altar. Set an intention for your morning or daily altar. This can be for us as individuals, for the day, for someone else, or for the whole world. Take a picture and then share it on whatever social media or email connections you have, and then walk away. The altar will return to where it began, a reminder of the impermanence of all things. May inspiration visit you and sweep you away, whether you choose to make one or many altars or a creative project. We've traveled all over the world today. Know that we can stay local and get together as a community to make a morning altar. So I invite everyone to join me outside. I know not everyone will be able to or be so inclined. I did bring some things from my own yard, and maybe we can grab a few things that are outside on the patio, and we can put them together to create a morning altar outside. I look forward to creating with you. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. And blessed be. And now, if you could join us in humming or singing our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home.
Please join me in this beautiful song. Low, I feel the ocean standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry lips what can say. I've been sailing all my life, never forward nor port have I known. My universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat. Sun, my sail, and moon, my brother, as I glide the starry sea, waving over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Creating my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way to the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat. I give thanks to the waves upholding me. Hail the great winds urging me on. Creating infinite sea before me. Sing the sky my sacred song. I was born upon the lands. Never wandered no port have I known. My universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat.
Now is the time for us to extinguish the chalice here at UUFLB and within our homes. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing words are from ritualist and author Denise Lynn. The altar within. Your home can transform private space into sacred space, which brings artistry, respect, love, and spirit into your environment. It can be a remarkable metaphor for the beauty and harmony that dwell at the center of your existence. The enhancement of personal power and spiritual growth, which result from creating and using an altar, can change your life in a positive way so that your life becomes a kind of altar, a beacon of light, beaming love and peace to all.
So now please join us in our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth. We'll form a circle here within the fellowship.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, that peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other, perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my soul vow. To take each moment, live each moment in peace, eternally. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin. Have fun building your morning altars.